Pondering the creation of the world is a worthy endeavor, taken on by scientists and theologians alike. Science and the theory of relativity theorize that the universe was created about 14 billion years ago, in an instant from an unlikely and perfectly executed Big Bang. Cosmology, from a Protestant perspective, points to the story of creation and God's literal six-day creation of the universe. This is unfortunately where the disagreements often begin, with some pointing to the Big Bang and other to God's intentional creation of the world. This separates creationists and evolutionists, and more importantly, places science and religion at odds with each other. I provided you a handout to explain the differences between creationists and evolutionists to help us better frame our conversation today. Many times people will call religion the enemy of science, or vice versa, but I don't believe this has to be the case. In fact, I believe in a perfect marriage of the two. So when faced with the question of how religion and science interact cosmologically, I point to God using science like a paintbrush that paints the universe into existence, harmonizing science with religion. Harmonizing the two stems from my belief that the two are not at odds with each other, but are instead synergistic, working to advance one another. Today, it is my goal to show you the synergy between science and religion. Science today has many branches, including biology, physics, chemistry, and even medicine. Although the subject matter is very diverse, there's a common thread helping humans better understand various aspects of life and nature. Historically, as humans have furthered their understanding of science, they have made new discoveries that benefit life. For example, discoveries in medicine have helped develop life-saving vaccines and treatments. And in the realm of genetics, scientists have even begun to learn how to adapt and change human genes before birth, preventing disease or lowering risk factors. In this way, you see that science not only seeks to further understanding, it seeks to improve lives. Religion is equally as diverse as science, taking different forms around the world such as Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, and Hinduism. Religion attempts to expand humans' understanding of the world around them and provide meaning to their lives. The discovery of religion proves to be a pivotal point for some people, offering them new lenses to view the world through and a lifestyle to adhere to. Hinduism's belief that life is in all things promotes respect for nature and animals, and Christians inspired by Christ's healing miracles in the Bible go out into the world on mission trips to bring the message of love and salvation to others. You can see that with religion too, it seeks to further understanding and improve human lives. You can see that the roles of science and religion are very similar, both seeking to better human life, either physically, mentally, spiritually, as well as further humans' understanding of the world around them, suggesting that we harmonize them rather than paint them as enemies. Early Greeks harmonized science and religion by developing an answer to why the world doesn't fall. And Nathan Aviezer, a writer on intelligent design, writes about it saying, "They answered the question why the earth doesn't fall because the earth must be held up by some divine entity, a god whom the Greeks named Atlas. Moreover, they understood that one cannot ask, why does Atlas not fall? As a god, Atlas was not bound by the laws of falling, and he may remain suspended at will." Also, authors of Science and Religion, a book on this matter, Joshua Moritz depicts the harmony of these two in the Christian doctrine of God's two books, with the Bible being God's book on religion, and nature being God's book on science. The opposition would have you believe that there could be no synergy between science and religion, but it becomes evident if we dig a little bit deeper. Historically, modern science's roots can be traced to medieval Europe. Historians and philosophers of science point to the influence religion has had on science as being foundational for science's development. Many theological concepts and ideas served as foundational assumptions for scientific exploration and discoveries by early scientists. Joshua Moritz points to Newton's argument for the universality of the laws of nature as a great example of this. This reasoning is a thinking that the support for the universality of the law of nature is a clearly theological idea. Another example is the motivation for scientific experimentation by the scientist Francis Bacon, which was to revert the mind back to its previous perfect condition, or at least a more perfect condition than it was in today. This is based on the idea that the mind deteriorated after the fall of mankind and the introduction of sin into the universe. And Carl Giberson, an author of the book The Wonder of the Universe, also describes some of the world's most famous historical scientists as being motivated by the religion, and says they were captivated by the wonder of coming to a greater understanding of God's creation, and convinced they could see an even deeper expression of God's handiwork in the world they were explaining. These points offer support for the idea that religion helps advance science. As an example of how science helps advance religion, you can look at a few areas. Look at how God acted through the laws of nature to enact his miracles. I've developed a greater appreciation of God's awesome omnipotence and power by doing that. It's important to note that I'm not saying God is limited by science, but instead chooses to work through it. Referencing my initial point, God uses science like a paintbrush, enacting his work through an understandable medium for humans like us so that we can understand it. Science has helped advance religion in other ways too. For example, geology has made contributions to providing evidence of a worldwide flood, as described in the story of Noah. Another example would be archaeology and anthropology working together to help us better understand the people and civilizations that we read about in the Bible. These examples show that science, in more than one way, contribute to religion, providing more detail to God's enactment of miracles to unearthing scientific discoveries that help provide Christians with evidence of their biblical stories. Finally, what is the effect of embracing the harmony and synergy of science with religion? I think it's well illustrated by the history and influence both have had on the Adventist Church. An early and significant Adventist figure, Ellen White, wrote about the effects of coffee and tobacco on the body. Those writings were the beginning of her advocacy for a healthy life, and she encouraged the congregation to leave those things behind. Then, she received a vision in 1863, which would become the well-known health message, promoting a plant-based diet and a healthier lifestyle. This message would inspire another Adventist, John Harvey Kellogg, to establish a famous sanitarium at Battle Creek in Michigan. His sanitarium promoted well-being through different kinds of therapy and dietary coaching. This was just the beginning of Adventist focus on health and well-being. And since that time, healthcare, science, and medicine have grown into prominent fields of study for Seventh-day Adventists. Adventists have hospital chains on both sides of the coast in the United States and across the globe. The Adventist mission work is also largely healthcare related, providing treatment to those in need. They've also worked to form the Adventist Disaster Relief Agency, which is famously known as ADRA, to provide health care for those in need around the world. The Adventist motivation behind their expansive involvement in healthcare is both religiously motivated as well as scientifically driven, providing a prime example of the impact that can be achieved through harmonizing science and religion. Returning to the cosmological question of the origin of the universe, I find that the Big Bang and the literal six-day creation on their own are lackluster. But by accepting science, I see a lack of meaning By accepting science alone, I see a lack of meaning for the world, and by accepting only religion, I fail to see the intricacies of God's intelligent design. Neither science nor religion alone provide as full of a cosmological picture as the one painted by God using science to create the world. By harmonizing science and religion, I see a more complete picture of God's omnipotence and see the origin of life in new light. By reflecting again on the roles of science and religion, I see that both seek to further human understanding and benefit human life, so their interactions help advance their common cause. Historically, the synergy of science and religion has helped develop modern science, further our understanding of religion, and develop the Adventist Church's prowess in healthcare. So rather than viewing science and religion as enemies, see them as allies. God's two books, Science and Religion, both working together to further human understanding and improve human well-being.